"You're done, princess," Kyle smirked, his voice dripping with venom as he pushed Sade's shoulders into the parking lot, Hunter and Liam closing in like wolves. The air crackled with danger, Sade's heart pounding as she faced the trio's hatred, their words like knives aimed at her spirit. But beneath her calm exterior burned the fire forged by her father, ready to turn their arrogance into their downfall. This was the moment where courage met cruelty, when a girl's resistance to bigotry could change everything, or cost her dearly. Will Sade outsmart her tormentors, or will their cruelty crush her? Follow us to find out. If this story resonates with you, hit that subscribe button to see our latest videos and leave a comment about where you're watching. Your city might inspire our next story. Don't miss a second of this exciting journey. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and anticipation, the kind that clung to the skin like a second pulse. The Westbridge High Stadium, a sprawling concrete bowl under the August sky, thrummed with life. Thousands of voices collided, cheers, laughter, the sharp whistle of a coach, while the floodlights burned white-hot, carving the field into a stage of glory and shadow. Sade Williams, 17, stood at the edge of that stage, her heart a drumbeat against her ribs. Her braids, tightly woven and tipped with gold beads, swung as she adjusted the straps of her red and gold uniform. The fabric hugged her compact frame, a second skin that shimmered under the lights. At 5'4", Sadie was no giant, but her presence was seismic, her movements honed to a razor's edge. "Yo, Sade, you ready to kill it?" Nia, her best friend and teammate, leaned in, her voice a conspiratorial whisper over the roar of the crowd. Nia's eyes sparkled with the same fire that had carried their dance crew, the Rhythm Hawks, through months of grueling rehearsals. "Born ready," Sade replied, her lips curling into a half-smile. The words were steady, but her pulse betrayed her, a wild, untamed thing racing beneath her calm exterior. This was no ordinary performance. The annual cheer dance competition was Westbridge's crown jewel, drawing schools from across the county. For Sad, it was a chance to prove she belonged, to silence the whispers that followed her like a shadow in this town where diversity was more slogan than truth. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers, a deep baritone that cut through the chaos. "Next up, from Westbridge High, the Rhythm Hawks." The crowd erupted, a tidal wave of sound that crashed over the field. Sade took her place at the center of the formation, her teammates fanning out behind her like wings. Nia to her left, Jada to her right, and 10 others, all synchronized, all hungry. The music hit, a pulsing hip-hop beat laced with the sharp snare of a marching band, and Sade exploded into motion. Her body became the rhythm itself. A spin, sharp and clean, her braids whipping through the air. A high kick that sliced the night, drawing gasps from the stands. A backflip, fearless and flawless, her feet kissing the grass with barely a sound. The crowd was hers, their cheers a living thing that wrapped around her, lifting her higher. She caught Nia's eye mid-routine, a silent "we got this" passing between them. The Hawks moved as one, their fusion of hip-hop and cheer a rebellion against the stiff, traditional routines of their rivals. Sade's solo was the crescendo, a dizzying sequence of leaps and spins that ended with her landing in a split, arms raised like a queen claiming her throne. The stadium detonated. Applause thundered, whistles pierced the air, and somewhere in the stands, Sade's father, Colonel Marcus Williams, watched with a pride so fierce it could have burned the stars. She rose to her feet, chest heaving, and scanned the crowd. Faces blurred together, classmates, strangers, teachers, until her gaze snagged on 3 figures leaning against the bleachers, their silhouettes sharp against the glow of the concession stand. Kyle Brennan, Hunter Tate, and Liam Carver. Seniors from Crestwood High, the rival school across town. Kyle, the football captain, stood at the center, his blonde hair catching the light, his smirk a blade. Hunter, broader, buzz-cut, and brooding, crossed his arms like a bouncer guarding a secret. Liam, lanky and restless, shifted from foot to foot, his laughter too loud, too forced. Sade knew them by reputation. Crestwood's golden boys, untouchable in their wealth and arrogance. They'd never spoken to her before, but their eyes told a story she'd read too many times. Disgust, laced with something darker. She held Kyle's stare for a heartbeat, her chin lifting in defiance. The music faded, and the Hawks jogged off the field, high-fiving as they went. Nia slung an arm around Sade's shoulders. "Girl, you owned that stage. MVP for sure." "Don't jinx it," Sade said. But her grin was real. The adrenaline still sang in her veins, drowning out the unease Kyle's gaze had stirred. She glanced back, but the trio had vanished into the crowd, swallowed by the sea of Letterman jackets and pom-poms. An hour later, the judges took the field. Their clipboards clutched like sacred texts. The announcer's voice crackled to life. In third place, Lincoln High's Spirit Squad. Polite applause. In second, Crestwood High's Eagle Elite. Louder cheers, spiked with Crestwood's signature arrogance. Sade's stomach tightened. And in first place, with an outstanding performance, Westbridge High's Rhythm Hawks. The Hawks screamed, a tangle of hugs and tears. Sadie's laughter rang out as Nia tackled her in a bear hug. But the announcer wasn't done. And this year's MVP for her exceptional leadership and artistry, Sade Williams. The crowd roared, and Sade froze, the weight of the moment crashing over her. Jada shoved her forward and she stumbled toward the judges, who handed her a gleaming trophy, its surface cool against her palms. She held it aloft, the lights catching its curves, and for that moment, she was invincible. Her father's face in the stands was a beacon, stoic, but his eyes shone with something softer, something only she could read. As the Hawks celebrated, Sad felt a shift in the air, like the first gust before a storm. She turned, and there they were again. Kyle, Hunter, and Liam, now closer, near the edge of the field. Kyle's voice cut through the din, loud enough to carry to the students nearby. "Look at her, thinking she owns the place." His tone was venom, coated in a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "This ain't your stage, girl." Hunter spat on the ground, his voice low but deliberate. "Yeah, why don't you stick to your side of town?" Liam's laugh was a nervous bark, his eyes darting to his friends for approval. A few Crestwood students snickered, their phones already out, capturing the moment. Sade's grip tightened on the trophy, her knuckles whitening. The words weren't new. She'd heard worse, from whispers in hallways to slurs scrawled on bathroom stalls. But this was different. This was public, calculated, a challenge laid bare under the stadium lights. Nia stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Y'all need to back off. She earned this." "Earned?" Kyle's smirk widened. "More like they felt sorry for her. Diversity points, right?" Sade's blood boiled, but her father's training kicked in. Never react on their terms. She forced her shoulders to relax, her face a mask of calm. "Keep talking," she said, her voice steady, cutting through their laughter. "It's all you're good for." The crowd around them stilled, sensing the tension. Kyle's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, a coach's whistle shrilled, and the teams were called to clear the field. The trio melted back into the crowd, but Sade felt their stares like knives in her back. Nia grabbed her arm. "Sade, don't let them get to you. They're just mad we smoked their sorry team." "I'm good," Sade lied, her smile tight. But as she walked to the locker room, the trophy heavy in her hands, she knew this was only the beginning. Kyle, Hunter, and Liam weren't just jealous. They were dangerous, their hatred rooted in something deeper than a lost competition. She thought of her father, his lessons about strength, about fighting battles the smart way. Tonight she'd celebrate, tomorrow she'd prepare. The stadium lights dimmed as the crowd dispersed, but the shadows lingered, whispering of the fight to come. The Monday morning sun sliced through the windows of Westbridge High, painting the hallways in a deceptively cheerful glow. Sade Williams navigated the crowded corridor, her MVP trophy from the weekend's cheer dance competition still a warm memory in her chest. Her red sneakers squeaked against the polished linoleum, her braids swaying with each step. The school buzzed with pride. Posters celebrating the Rhythm Hawks' victory plastered the walls, and classmates flashed her thumbs-ups or called out, "Yo, Sade, you killed it!" She smiled, but the weight of Kyle Brennan's words from the stadium lingered like a bruise. "This ain't your stage, girl." Her locker loomed ahead, a battered metal sentinel in a row of identical ones. A cluster of sticky notes adorned it. Congratulations from friends, doodled hearts from Nia and Jada. But as Sade spun the combination lock and yanked the door open, something fluttered to the floor. A single folded paper, its edges creased with deliberate care. She bent to retrieve it, her fingers brushing the cold tile, and unfolded it under the fluorescent light. Her breath caught. Scrawled in black marker was a crude drawing of a monkey in a cheer uniform, its exaggerated features a grotesque caricature. Beneath it, in jagged letters, "Go back to the jungle, MVP." The hallway's noise faded to a dull roar in her ears. Her stomach twisted, a sickening mix of rage and shame. She scanned the crowd, her eyes landing on Hunter Tate, his buzz cut unmistakable as he leaned against a locker 3 rows down. He was laughing with Liam Carver, but his gaze flicked to her, sharp and knowing. His smirk was a silent confession. Kyle wasn't there, but Sade felt his presence in the venom of the note, his voice echoing from the stadium. This was their move, their opening shot. She crumpled the paper, shoving it into her pocket. Her father's voice cut through the haze. "Never let them see you break." Colonel Marcus Williams had drilled that into her since she was old enough to understand cruelty. After her mother's death 7 years ago, he'd built her into a fortress, resilient, watchful, unbreakable. She squared her shoulders, slammed her locker shut, and marched to her first class, the note burning a hole in her jeans. By the second period, the whispers had started. Sade felt eyes on her in English class, students glancing over their shoulders, their murmurs just out of reach. She kept her head down, scribbling notes on the Great Gatsby, but the weight of their stares pressed against her. At the bell, she headed to the principal's office, the crumpled note in hand. Principal Hayes, a balding man with tired eyes, sat behind a desk cluttered with papers and a half-empty coffee mug. "Sade, what's this about?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. She slid the note across the desk. "This was in my locker this morning. It's from some Crestwood kids. Kyle Brennan, Hunter Tate, Liam Carver. I saw them at the competition, and Hunter was watching me when I found it." Hayes unfolded the paper, his face tightening as he read. He sighed, a heavy sound that carried more resignation than outrage. "This is unacceptable, Sud, but without proof tying it to specific students, it's hard to act. Kids play pranks." "Pranks?" Sade's voice was sharp, cutting through his excuse. "This isn't a prank. It's a threat. I know it's them." He raised a hand, placating. "I'll call Crestwood's principal and look into it, but let's not jump to conclusions. We'll handle this quietly." Sade's jaw clenched. Quietly meant nothing would change. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and left the office, the note still in Hayes's possession. The hallway was a blur of faces, but she caught Liam's lanky frame near the water fountain, his nervous laugh grating against her nerves. He avoided her gaze, but the guilt in his posture was unmistakable. Lunch brought the next blow. Sad sat with Nia and Jada in the cafeteria, their table a fortress of laughter and support. But as she scrolled through her phone, a notification pinged, an Instagram tag from an account called Crestwood Pride 99. The post was a photo of her at the competition, mid-leap, her face radiant with triumph. The caption twisted the knife. "Westbridge's diversity hire wins by pity points. It's not my MVP." Comments flooded in, each one a dart. "She doesn't belong in our stadium. Rigged for the woke crowd." "Go back to where you came from." The post had 50 likes, mostly from Crestwood students. Their profile pictures a parade of smirking faces in football jerseys. Sade's fingers hovered over the block button, but she screenshot the post instead, her father's words echoing, "Document everything." Nia leaned over, her eyes widening. "Sade, this is messed up. You need to show someone." "I showed Hayes the note," Sade said, her voice low. "He's looking into it." Jada snorted. "Looking into it? He's gonna file it under ignore. You gotta do something." "I will," Sade said, her resolve hardening. She glanced across the cafeteria, where a group of Crestwood kids had crashed the lunch period, a perk of their school's shared track meet. Hunter was there, his backpack slung over one shoulder, whispering to a teammate. His eyes met hers for a split second, and the challenge in them was clear. The final straw came during dance practice that afternoon. The Rhythm Hawks were in the gym, running through their routine for the upcoming regional competition. Sade's gym bag sat by the bleachers, untouched, or so she thought. When she reached for her water bottle mid-break, she unscrewed the cap and froze. The liquid inside wasn't water. It was syrup, thick and sticky, oozing onto her hand. The bottle slipped from her grip, splattering the floor. Nia gasped. "What the hell? Who did this?" Sade's eyes darted to the gym's side entrance, where Hunter stood, half hidden by the doorframe. He wasn't laughing, but his presence was a signature. She wiped her hand on her shorts, her pulse hammering. This wasn't just a prank. It was a message, a line drawn in the sand. "Enough," she muttered, grabbing her phone. She texted her father. "Some kids are messing with me. Can we talk tonight?" Practice ended early, the team rattled by the incident. Nia walked Sade to her locker, her voice fierce. "You can't let them get away with this, Sade. They're trying to break you." "They won't," Sade said, her voice steady but her hands trembling as she packed her bag. The syrup's sticky residue clung to her fingers, a reminder of the violation. She thought of Kyle's smirk, Hunter's cold stare, and Liam's nervous laugh. They thought she was weak, an easy target. They were wrong. That evening, Sade sat across from her father at their kitchen table, the room lit by a single overhead bulb. Colonel Marcus Williams, still in his army fatigues, listened as she laid out the day's events. She showed him the screenshot of the Instagram post, described the note, the syrup, and Hunter's lingering presence. His face was a mask of controlled fury, his eyes darkening with each detail. "They're testing you," he said, his voice low, lethal. "They want you to quit, to run, but you're my daughter, and we don't run." "What do I do?" Sade asked, her voice quieter now, the weight of the day pressing down. He leaned forward, his hands clasped. "Document everything. Names, times, places, every move they make. We'll handle this like a mission. Strategic, precise. They picked the wrong fight." Sade nodded, a spark igniting in her chest. The note, the post, the syrup. They weren't just attacks. They were mistakes, cracks in her enemy's armor. She thought of her father's lessons, the way he'd taught her to turn fear into fuel. Tonight she'd rest. Tomorrow she'd start building her case, watching, waiting, ready to strike back when the time was right. The kitchen clock ticked softly, marking the hours until the battle began. The pre-dawn air was sharp, biting at Sade Williams' skin as she stood in the backyard of her Westbridge home. The world was still cloaked in the indigo hush of 5:01 a.m. The only sounds the distant hum of a neighbor's sprinklers and the rhythmic creak of her father's boots on the grass. Colonel Marcus Williams, silhouetted against the faint glow of the porch light, circled her like a general inspecting his troops. His army fatigues were crisp, his eyes a storm of focus and resolve. The backyard, a modest patch of lawn bordered by a sagging wooden fence, had been transformed into a training ground. A thick mat covered the ground, a punching bag hung from a sturdy oak, and a pile of sandbags stood ready for drills. "Sadi," her father said, his voice low but commanding, "they want you to quit. They want you broken. You won't be. But you need to be ready for anything." She nodded, her breath visible in the chilly air. Her muscles ached from yesterday's dance practice, but the fire in her chest burned hotter than any fatigue. The note in her locker, the Instagram post, the syrup in her water bottle, Kyle Brennan, Hunter Tate, and Liam Carver had drawn first blood. Now it was her turn to prepare for war. She tightened the laces of her sneakers, her braids tucked into a tight bun, and squared her shoulders. "Let's do this." Colonel Williams didn't smile, but his eyes gleamed with approval. "Forget everything you think you know about fighting," he began, stepping onto the mat. "Movies, video games, they're noise. Real combat is about efficiency. You don't waste energy. You don't hesitate. You strike. You neutralize. You survive." He demonstrated his movements in a blur of precision, a palm strike to an imaginary throat, a knee to a phantom solar plexus, a heel stomp to a non-existent foot. 3 seconds or less, he said, pausing to face her. That's all it takes to end a threat. But before you ever raise a hand, you observe. You learn their patterns, their weaknesses, and their blind spots. Sun Tzu said, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." Said absorbed every word, her mind racing to keep up with her body. Her father had been training her in self-defense since she was 10. Jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga, situational awareness. But this was different. This was no longer about hypotheticals. Kyle's sneer, Hunter's cold stare, Liam's nervous laugh. They were real and they were coming for her. The colonel tossed her a pair of padded gloves. "Let's start with breaking a grab." For the next hour, they drilled. He seized her wrist, and she twisted, using his momentum to free herself. He lunged and she sidestepped, creating distance with a sharp push. Her muscles burned, her breath came in short bursts, but she pushed through, each move etching itself into her muscle memory. "Speed is your weapon," her father said, correcting her stance. "You're smaller, but you're smarter. They expect a victim. Use that against them." By 6:30 a.m., the sky had softened to a bruised purple, and Sade was drenched in sweat. Her father handed her a water bottle and a notebook. "Training doesn't stop here," he said. "You need intelligence. Watch those boys. Kyle, Hunter, Liam. Where do they go? Who do they talk to? What do they care about? Bullies always leave a trail." Sade nodded, tucking the notebook under her arm. The idea of spying felt strange, like something out of a movie. But her father's intensity grounded her. This was real. This was survival. At school, Sade became a ghost. The joint track meet with Crestwood High provided the perfect cover. A chaotic blend of students from both schools, milling around the stadium for practice. She positioned herself on the bleachers, her hoodie pulled low, a textbook open as a prop. Her eyes, however, were locked on her targets. Kyle Brennan strutted like a king, his blonde hair catching the sun, his football teammates orbiting him like planets. He was the leader, cocky and untouchable, his father's councilman status a shield. Hunter Tate, broader and brooding, kept his backpack close, his movements sharp, almost paranoid. Liam Carver, lanky and anxious, trailed behind, his laughter too eager, desperate to belong. She jotted notes in her book, disguised as math homework. Kyle arrives 7:45 a.m., parks black Jeep near gym. Hunter, always by the leashers, guards backpack. Liam follows Kyle, nervous, checks phone constantly. She watched their interactions, noting how Kyle dominated conversations, how Hunter's temper flared when a freshman bumped him, how Liam's eyes darted to Kyle for approval. They were a pack, but not unbreakable. Every pack had a weak link. The harassment didn't stop. By Wednesday, Sade found her locker door scratched, the word freak carved into the metal with a key. She photographed it, her hands steady despite the anger coiling in her gut. In the hallway, Liam brushed past her, his shoulder clipping hers just hard enough to sting. "Oops," he muttered, not looking back, but his smirk betrayed him. She added it to her notes. Liam, 11:15 a.m., deliberate bump, east hallway. Thursday brought a new low. During lunch, a group text from an unknown number pinged her phone. "Quit the dance team or you'll regret it." The message was unsigned, but she recognized the tone. Kyle's arrogance, Hunter's menace, Liam's cowardice. She screenshot it, her fingers trembling, not with fear, but with purpose. They thought they could scare her off. They didn't know who they were dealing with. That afternoon during dance practice, Sade caught Hunter watching from the stands. He wasn't cheering or joking like the other Crestwood kids who'd shown up to scope out the competition. He sat alone, his backpack at his feet, his eyes locked on her. It wasn't just hatred in his gaze. It was calculation, like a predator sizing up prey. She met his stare, unflinching, and he looked away first, slinging his bag over his shoulder and disappearing into the crowd. Her notebook gained a new entry. Hunter, 3:20 p.m., stadium, watching practice, protective of backpack. Hiding something? That night, Sade sat across from her father at the kitchen table, her notebook open between them. The single bulb overhead cast stark shadows, mirroring the tension in the room. She recounted the week's incidents, The scratched locker, the text, Hunter's surveillance. "He's hiding something," she said, tapping her pen on the page. "His backpack. He's weirdly protective of it. Never let it out of sight." Colonel Williams leaned back, his eyes narrowing. "Sounds like a lead. Could be nothing. It could be everything. Keep watching. If he's breaking rules, he's vulnerable." "What if they escalate?" Sade asked, her voice quieter now. The text message had rattled her more than she wanted to admit. Her father's expression softened, but his voice was steel. "Then you'll be ready. You're not just my daughter. You're a warrior. They picked the wrong fight." Sade nodded, the weight of his words settling into her bones. She thought of Kyle's smirk, Hunter's cold eyes, and Liam's nervous laugh. They thought they could break her, drive her out of the dance team, out of their world. But every scratch word, every threatening text was a mistake. They were leaving a trail, just as her father had said. She closed her notebook, her resolve hardening like iron in a forge. The training ground wasn't just the backyard. It was every hallway, every glance, every moment she refused to bow. Tomorrow she'd watch closer, dig deeper. The battle had begun, and Sade Williams was ready to fight. The Crestwood High Stadium loomed like a fortress under the late September sky, its concrete bleachers packed with a restless crowd. The regional cheer dance competition was a battleground, and Sade Williams felt the weight of every eye as she stepped onto the field with the Rhythm Hawks. Her red and gold uniform clung to her frame, her braids pulled into a high bun that gleamed under the floodlights. The air was electric, charged with the scent of popcorn and the pulse of hip-hop blaring from the speakers. 2 weeks had passed since the scratched locker, the threatening text, and Hunter Tate's chilling stare. Sade's nerves were taut, but her father's training anchored her. Observe, strike when they least expect it. The Hawks' routine was a masterpiece of defiance, each move a rebuttal to the hatred Sade had endured. She led with a ferocity that silenced the crowd, her spins and leaps cutting through the night like a blade. Nia's grin flashed beside her, and Jada's kicks snapped in perfect sync. But Sade's eyes weren't on the judges. They were scanning the stands, searching for the trio who'd made her life a gauntlet. Kyle Brennan, Hunter Tate, and Liam Carver were out there. She knew it. Their absence would have been too easy. As the music faded and the Hawks struck their final pose, the crowd erupted, a tidal wave of applause that shook the stadium. Sade's chest heaved, her smile fierce but fleeting. She caught a glimpse of Kyle in the upper bleachers, his blonde hair unmistakable, his arms crossed with a scowl. Liam was beside him, fidgeting, his phone glowing in his hand. Hunter was nowhere in sight, but Sade's gut told her he was close. Too close. "Girl, we crushed it," Nia whispered as they jogged off the field, high-fiving teammates. "You see Kyle up there? He's pissed." "Let him be," Sade said, her voice low. "I'm not here for him." But her eyes darted to the sidelines, where Crestwood students clustered, their laughter edged with malice. Her notebook, tucked in her gym bag, held 3 pages of observations. Kyle's arrogance, Liam's insecurity, Hunter's paranoia over his backpack. That backpack, always with him, always guarded, nagged at her. It was a puzzle, and tonight, she'd find a piece. The competition paused for a break, teams scattering to the concession stands and restrooms. Sade slipped away from the Hawks, pulling her hoodie over her uniform to blend into the crowd. Her father's voice echoed, "Information is power." She moved with purpose, weaving through knots of students until she reached the back of the concession stand, a shadowed corner reeking of fried food and spilled soda. It was a hunch born from watching Hunter's patterns at the track meet. He liked isolated spots, places where eyes didn't linger. She crouched behind a stack of crates, her phone ready in her hand. Minutes ticked by, the crowd's noise a distant hum. Then footsteps, heavy, deliberate. Hunter emerged from the shadows, his buzz cut glinting under a flickering security light. His backpack was slung over one shoulder, his posture tense, like a coiled spring. A younger kid, maybe a freshman, shuffled up, his hands stuffed in his pockets. Sade's pulse quickened. She zoomed in with her phone's camera, the record button glowing red. "Got the cash," Hunter muttered, his voice barely audible. The kid nodded, pulling out a wad of bills. Hunter unzipped his backpack, revealing a glimpse of small plastic bags, pills unmistakable even in the dim light. He handed one over, pocketing the money with a practiced flick. The kid scurried off and Hunter zipped up, scanning the area. Sade held her breath, her phone steady. She had him. The video was shaky but clear. Hunter's face, the pills, the exchange. She stopped recording, her heart hammering. This wasn't just bullying. This was a crime. She texted her father. Hunter's selling drugs. Caught it on video. What now? His reply was instant. Stay safe. Get more evidence if you can. We'll take this to the authorities when it's airtight. Sade slipped back to the Hawks, her mind racing. The competition resumed, but her focus was fractured. The judges announced the Hawks as finalists, but the cheers felt distant. She kept her eyes on Hunter, now back in the stands with Kyle and Liam, his backpack at his feet. He didn't know she'd seen his secret, didn't know the hunter was now the hunted. Back at Westbridge the next week, Sade turned her reconnaissance into a mission. Her father's training had sharpened her instincts, and she used every moment to watch Hunter. Tuesdays after Crestwood's football practice were his deal days, always behind the stadium, always quick. She borrowed Nia's bike, parking it near the track to blend in, and recorded 2 more transactions. Each video was a nail in Hunter's coffin. Same backpack, same pills, different buyers. She noted the times, 4:15 p.m., 4:22 p.m., and the faces of the kids, though she didn't know their names. Her notebook grew thick with details. Hunter, deals behind south bleachers, cash only, checks the surroundings constantly. The bullying didn't stop. On Wednesday, Sadie arrived at her locker to find it vandalized again, the word outsider scrawled in red paint. She snapped a photo, her jaw tight. In the hallway, Liam tripped her as she walked to chemistry, her books scattering across the floor. Watch it, he snickered, but his eyes flickered with unease when she stood, brushing herself off without a word. Kyle wasn't as subtle. During a joint pep rally, he leaned over from the Crestwood section and hissed, "You're not fooling anyone, princess. This school's too good for you." Sade met his gaze, her voice ice. "Keep talking, Kyle. It's all you've got." The words were a shield, but inside the pressure was building. She confided in Nia after practice, showing her the latest video. Nia's eyes widened. "Sade, this is huge. You could end him with this." "Not yet," Sade said, zipping her bag. "I need more. They think they're untouchable. I'm going to prove they're not." Friday brought a new test. During dance practice, Sade noticed her gym bag had been moved, its contents rifled through. Nothing was missing, but the violation stung. She caught Liam lingering near the gym's exit, his phone out, typing furiously. Another text arrived that night. "Last chance. Qui, 't'll make you." She screenshot it, her resolve hardening. They were escalating, but so was she. That evening, Sade sat with her father in their living room, the video synced to her laptop. Colonel Williams watched in silence, his face a mask of controlled fury. "This is enough to start," he said, pausing the footage on Hunter's face. "But we need one more piece, something that ties them all together. Kyle's the leader, Liam's the weak link. If Hunter's dealing, they might know." "What if I get caught?" Sade asked, her voice steady but laced with the weight of what she was doing. Her father's eyes softened, but his voice was steel. "You won't. You're smarter than they are. Keep your distance. Stay invisible. We're close, Sade. They started this war, but you'll finish it." She nodded, the laptop's glow casting shadows across her face. The videos, the texts, the vandalism, they were weapons now, each one a step toward justice. She thought of Hunter's backpack, Kyle's arrogance, and Liam's cowardice. They'd underestimated her, thought her an easy mark. But Sade Williams was no victim. She was a warrior, trained in a forge of her father's making, and she was ready to strike. The secret was out, and the battle was about to turn. The Crestwood High Stadium pulsed with raw energy, a cauldron of light and sound under the October dusk. The regional cheer dance championship was a crucible, and Sade Williams stood at his heart, her red and gold uniform a beacon in the chaos. The Rhythm Hawks were favored to win, their months of sweat and precision distilled into a 4-minute routine that could shatter expectations. Sade's braids pulled tight into a bun, glistened with sweat as she took her place center stage, her eyes scanning the crowd. Somewhere in that sea of faces were Kyle Brennan, Hunter Tate, and Liam Carver, her tormentors, her targets. She felt their presence like a storm on the horizon, but her father's voice steadied her. Strike on your terms, not theirs. The music erupted, a thunderous blend of hip-hop and bass that set the field ablaze. Sade launched into the routine, her movements a symphony of power and grace. Each spin was defiance, each leap a declaration. She belonged here. Nia's kicks sliced the air beside her, Jada's spins mirrored her own, the Hawks moving as one unstoppable force. The crowd roared, but Sadie's focus was razor-sharp, her solo looming like a battle cry. She nailed the opening, a high kick, a backflip, a split that drew gasps, her body a weapon honed by her father's training. For those moments, the world was hers. Then mid-spin, a flash of motion in the stands caught her eye. A water bottle arced through the air, glinting under the floodlights, aimed straight for her. Time slowed. The crowd's cheers faltered, a collective gasp rising as the bottle missed her by inches, splashing harmlessly on the grass. Sade didn't flinch. Her feet found the beat, her body flowing into the next move, a leap that soared higher, fiercer, as if daring them to try again. The Hawks closed the routine with a synchronized stomp. Sade's arms raised in triumph. The stadium detonated, applause crashing like waves. "Take that!" Nia hissed as they jogged off the field, her eyes blazing. "They're shocked, Sade. You saw that bottle?" Sade nodded, her breath ragged but her resolve ironclad. She'd seen Kyle in the stands, his blonde hair a beacon, his smirk gone. Liam was beside him, his face pale, while Hunter's buzz cut loomed lower down, his eyes locked on her. The bottle was their work. She knew it, a desperate, clumsy attempt to break her focus. They'd failed. The judges deliberated as the teams gathered, the air thick with tension. Sade stood with the Hawks, her trophy from the last competition, a phantom weight in her hands. Her notebook, hidden in her bag, held the evidence that could end this. Videos of Hunter dealing pills, screenshots of threatening texts, photos of her vandalized locker. But she needed more. Something to tie Kyle and Liam to Hunter's crimes. Her father's words echoed, "Patience. Let them show their hand." The announcer's voice boomed. "In the first place, with an unmatched performance, Westbridge High's Rhythm Hawks." The crowd roared, the Hawks screaming as they rushed the field. "And this year's MVP, for her electrifying solo, Sade Williams." Sade's heart soared, but the moment was tainted. As she stepped forward to accept her medal, a voice cut through the cheers. Kyle's, sharp and venomous. "This is rigged," he shouted, standing in the stands, his fists clenched. "She doesn't belong here." Hunter and Liam joined in, their boos rallying Crestwood students around them. The chants grew. "Rigged! Rigged!" A chorus of hatred that drowned out the Hawks' celebration. The judges ignored them, but Sade felt the sting, her medal cold against her palm. She held her head high, her smile a shield. But inside, the pressure was a vice. Nia grabbed her arm. "Don't let them ruin this, Sade. You earned it." "I know," Sade said, her voice steady but her eyes burning. She scanned the stands, memorizing Kyle's rage, Hunter's cold calculation, and Liam's nervous fidgeting. They weren't just angry, they were desperate. She'd won again, and they couldn't stand it. The crowd dispersed, the stadium emptying into the parking lot. Sade lingered with the Hawks, packing her gear, when Nia nudged her. "Trouble's coming." Kyle, Hunter, and Liam were approaching, cutting through the lot like predators. Sade's pulse quickened, her father's training kicking in. Assess the threat, control the space. "Stay here," she told Nia, slinging her bag over her shoulder. She walked toward her father's truck, parked under a flickering streetlight, her steps deliberate. The trio intercepted her, blocking her path. Kyle stepped forward, his smirk ablade. "You're done, princess," he said, shoving her shoulder hard enough to make her stumble. "Think you can keep winning? This ain't your game." Hunter loomed closer, his breath reeking of energy drinks, his backpack clutched tight. "Leave now, or we'll make you." His voice was low, a growl that promised violence. Liam hovered behind, his eyes darting, his hands twitching. Sade stood her ground, her heart a drumbeat, but her face a mask. "Touch me again, and you'll regret it." Her voice was ice cutting through their bravado. She shifted her stance, weight on her back foot, ready to move. Liam laughed, a nervous bark, but Hunter's eyes narrowed, his hand twitching toward his bag. Before he could act, a deep voice sliced through the tension. "Step back, boys." Colonel Marcus Williams emerged from the shadows, his military bearing a wall of authority. His eyes locked on Kyle, unyielding. "Now." Kyle's smirk faltered, but he held his ground for a moment, testing. Hunter took a step back, his grip tightening on his backpack. Liam was already retreating, his face pale. "This ain't over," Kyle muttered, but the fight had drained from him. The trio melted into the lot, their silhouettes swallowed by the night. Sade exhaled, her hands trembling as she climbed into her father's truck. The metal hung heavy around her neck, a symbol of victory and a target on her back. "They're getting bold," she said, her voice low. Colonel Williams started the engine, his expression grim. "They're desperate. That's when they make mistakes. Show me what you've got." At home, Sade spread her evidence across the kitchen table. 3 videos of Hunter's drug deals, screenshots of texts, and photos of her locker. She pointed to the latest video. "Hunter's the key. If he goes down, Kyle and Liam might crack. They're protecting him. I can feel it." Her father studied the footage, his jaw tight. "This is strong, but we need to tie them together. Kyle's the leader. He's not dirtying his hands, but he's calling the shots. Keep watching. One more piece, and we end this." Sade nodded, the weight of the night settling into her bones. The bottle, the booze, the shove, they were a declaration of war. But she wasn't alone. Her father's training, her team's loyalty, her own fire, they were her arsenal. She thought of Kyle's rage, Hunter's secret, and Liam's weakness. The tipping point had arrived, and Sade was ready to push them over the edge. The battle was hers to win, and she wouldn't back down. The autumn air was crisp, slicing through the Friday night lights of Crestwood High's football field like a blade. The stadium was a roaring beast, packed with students and parents cheering for the home team. But Sade Williams stood apart, her eyes fixed not on the game, but on the shadows beyond the bleachers. Her red hoodie concealed her Westbridge dance team jacket, her braids tucked under the hood to blend into the crowd. She perched on the edge of the stands, her phone in hand, its screen dark but ready. Tonight was no ordinary night. It was the culmination of weeks of reconnaissance, of evidence gathered in secret. Kyle Brennan, Hunter Tate, and Liam Carver had pushed her to the edge, and now she was ready to push back. Sade's notebook, hidden in her backpack, was a ledger of their crimes, videos of Hunter's drug deals, screenshots of threatening texts, photos of her vandalized locker. But the final piece had come earlier that week, overheard in the chaos of a joint school event. Hunter, bragging to Kyle in a deserted hallway, had let slip his plan for a big deal at the Roadhouse Diner after practice. "Biggest payout yet," he'd said, his voice smug. "You and Liam keep watch, we're set." Sade had been around the corner, her phone recording, capturing every word. That video was the key, proof that Kyle and Liam weren't just bystanders, but accomplices. She'd spent the week tailing them discreetly, borrowing Naya's bike to follow their routines without drawing attention. Tuesday, she'd recorded Hunter selling pills behind the stadium. Kyle and Liam loitering nearby, their eyes scanning for trouble. Thursday, she'd trailed them to the diner, hiding in the alley as Hunter met a college kid, handing over a bag of pills while Kyle leaned against his Jeep, smirking, and Liam fidgeted with his phone. Her footage was crystal clear. Faces, transactions, timestamps. She'd handed it all to her father, Colonel Marcus Williams, who'd contacted Detective Alvarez, a trusted ally from his Army days. "It's enough," her father had said, his voice grim. "They're done." Now as the fourth quarter clock ticked down, Sade watched the parking lot from her vantage point. Hunter's beat-up Ford truck was parked near the gym entrance, its windows dark. Kyle's black Jeep was 2 rows over, and Liam's bike was chained nearby. The game was a distraction, the crowd's cheers masking the tension coiling in her chest. Her phone buzzed. A text from her father. Alvarez is in position. Stay clear. She replied with a single word, understood. The final whistle blew, and Crestwood's team was victorious. The stands emptied, students spilling into the lot, their laughter and shouts a chaotic symphony. Sade stayed put, her eyes tracking Hunter as he emerged from the locker room, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Kyle and Liam flanked him, their usual swagger muted, as if they sensed the storm coming. They headed for Hunter's truck, oblivious to the unmarked car parked across the street, its occupants watching. Sade's heart pounded, but her training kept her steady. She zoomed in with her phone, recording as Hunter opened his truck's passenger door, rummaging in his backpack. Kyle leaned against the hood, scanning the lot, while Liam shifted nervously, his eyes darting to his phone. Then the trap sprang. Detective Alvarez and two uniformed officers approached, their badges glinting under the streetlights. "Hunter Tate," Alvarez called, his voice cutting through the noise. "Step away from the vehicle, hands where we can see them." Hunter froze, his hand still in the backpack. Kyle's smirk vanished, his face paling. Liam dropped his phone, the screen cracking on the asphalt. "What's this about?" Hunter demanded, but his voice cracked, betraying his fear. "We have a warrant to search your vehicle," Alvarez said, holding up a document. "Step back." The officers moved in, one cuffing Hunter's wrists while another opened the backpack. Sade's breath caught as they pulled out 3 plastic bags of pills, their contents glinting under the light. The crowd nearby stilled, phones emerging to capture the scene. "This is a setup," Hunter shouted, struggling against the cuffs. "I don't know how those got there." Kyle stepped forward, his voice low but desperate. "You've got the wrong guy, man. He's clean." Alvarez's eyes flicked to him. "Kyle Brennan, Liam Carver, you're coming with us too. We've got video of you aiding and abetting." He nodded to the officers who moved to detain them. Liam's knees buckled, his voice a whimper. "I didn't do anything. I was just there." "Save it for the station," Alvarez said, guiding them to the patrol car. Sad stopped recording, her hands trembling not with fear but with triumph. She'd done it. The evidence, her evidence, had brought them down. The arrests sent shockwaves through the lot. Crestwood students whispered, their phones buzzing with texts and videos. Sade slipped into the crowd, her hoodie low, her heart racing. She spotted Nia near the gate, her eyes wide. "Sade, is this you?" Nia whispered, grabbing her arm. "Hunter got busted?" Sade nodded, her voice barely audible. "It's over." But even as she said it, she felt the weight of what she'd done. Justice wasn't clean. It was heavy, messy, final. By Monday, the news had spread like wildfire. Crestwood's principal suspended Hunter, Kyle, and Liam pending investigation. The school board issued a statement condemning criminal behavior, and whispers of a federal probe into drug trafficking circled. Social media exploded, with students sharing Sade's performance videos from the championship, her MVP moment now a symbol of resilience. "She took them down," one post read, tagged with "Nishimurashi or Sade Strong." Others were uglier, Crestwood kids calling her a snitch, but Sade ignored them, her focus on the future. That night, she sat with her father in their living room, the evidence folder closed on the table. Colonel Williams studied her, his eyes a mix of pride and concern. "You did good, Sade. Clean, precise, effective. But this'll stir things up. You ready for the fallout?" She nodded, the memory of Hunter's cuffs, Kyle's shock, and Liam's panic fueling her resolve. "They started it. I finished it." He leaned forward, his voice low. "Not quite. The law's got them now, but people like Kyle don't go quietly. Stay sharp." Sade thought of the videos, the texts, the weeks of watching, waiting, striking. She'd turned their arrogance into their downfall, but the victory was bittersweet. Hunter's life was unraveling. Kyle's untouchable status was shattered, and Liam's cowardice was exposed. She felt no joy, only a quiet certainty that she'd done what was right. The fall was complete, but the battle wasn't over. Not yet. She closed her eyes, the stadium lights fading to black, and prepared for what came next. The January light poured through the tall windows of Westbridge High's auditorium, casting a golden glow over the polished wooden stage. Sade Williams stood at the podium, her red and gold dance team jacket a badge of honor, her braids cascading over her shoulders. The auditorium was packed. Students, teachers, parents, and even a few reporters from local news stations, their cameras trained on her. 3 months had passed since the arrests of Kyle Brennan, Hunter Tate, and Liam Carver, and the world had shifted beneath Sade's feet. Today, as the newly elected dance team captain, she was here to address the school at an assembly on anti-bullying and resilience. But the weight of her journey made every word feel like a battle won. Her hands gripped the podium, steady despite the eyes boring into her. The crowd was silent, a sea of faces hanging on her presence. She thought of the stadium lights, the water bottle arcing through the air, and Kyle's venomous words in the parking lot. Those moments had forged her, but this was her victory. A year ago, she began, her voice clear and strong, I thought my biggest challenge would be nailing a backflip. I never imagined I'd have to fight for my right to exist in this school, in this town. The memory of Hunter's handcuffs, Kyle's shock, and Liam's panic flashed through her mind. The courtroom 3 weeks ago had sealed their fates. Hunter had pleaded guilty to drug distribution, sentenced to 2 years in juvenile detention. Kyle and Liam, charged as accessories, received probation and 500 hours of community service each, their futures tarnished. The judge, a stern woman with gray-streaked hair, had commended Sade's courage, calling her evidence instrumental in upholding justice. The words echoed now, a quiet affirmation as she faced the crowd. Bullying isn't just words, she continued, her gaze sweeping the room. It's a choice to make someone feel small, to take away their place. I faced that choice from 3 people who thought I didn't belong. They pushed me, threatened me, tried to break me. But I learned something. Bullies only have power if you give it to them. The auditorium was still, her words landing like stones in water. She saw Nia in the front row, her smile fierce, and Principal Hayes, his face a mix of pride and regret for his earlier inaction. The changes at Westbridge were tangible. New anti-bullying policies had been implemented, mandatory diversity training, an anonymous reporting app, and peer mediation programs. The Rhythm Hawks had become a symbol of inclusion, recruiting dancers from every corner of the school. The football program, once a haven for unchecked egos, now emphasized character over wins. Dr. Angela Foster, a renowned expert on racial equity, had been hired as Director of Student Safety, her presence a promise of accountability. Sade's fight hadn't just saved her, it had reshaped her world. After the assembly, Nia found her in the hallway, her eyes bright. Sade, you had them shook. Did you see Kyle's old crew in the back? They couldn't even look at you. Sade smiled, but her thoughts were elsewhere. They don't matter anymore. This does. She gestured to the students lingering nearby, some approaching to share their own stories of harassment. A freshman girl whispered, "You made me feel like I can speak up." Sade's chest tightened. She hadn't just won for herself. That evening, she sat with her father, Colonel Marcus Williams, in their basement gym, a space now adorned with her trophies and newspaper clippings. The punching bag hung still, the mats worn from months of training. "How'd the speech go?" he asked, pausing his workout, his army fatigues dark with sweat. "Good," Sade said, leaning against the wall. "Kids listened. Some even talked to me after, said they're dealing with stuff too." He nodded, pride flickering in his eyes. "You're a leader now, Sade. Harvard's gonna be lucky to have you." Her acceptance letter, pinned to the wall, was a full scholarship. Her essay on overcoming hatred a beacon for the admissions board. Offers from 12 other universities had followed, but Harvard was her dream. "I keep thinking about what you said," she reflected, her voice soft. "About creating justice when the system fails. Do you ever regret teaching me to fight like this?" He studied her, his expression unyielding but warm. "My only regret is that you needed to. But I'd rather have a daughter who can stand tall than one who bends under pressure. You changed things, Side. Not just for you, for everyone." Her phone buzzed, a text from her guidance counselor. "News crew wants interview about new policies. Interested?" Sade hesitated, then typed, "Sure, one more." She looked at her father. "If one more kid sees it and fights back, It's worth it, right? He smiled, a rare, quiet thing. That's my warrior. 2 weeks later, an unexpected visitor arrived. Liam Carver stood on her porch, his lanky frame hunched, his mother beside him. He looked different, thinner, his eyes haunted by months of probation and public shame. Sad, he began, his voice shaking. I don't expect forgiveness. I need you to know I'm sorry. What we did, Kyle, Hunter, and I, was wrong. I see that now. His mother, her face lined with exhaustion, nodded. I failed him, Sade. I'm sorry for what he put you through. Sade studied Liam, searching for the nervous boy who'd laughed at her pain. He was gone, replaced by someone broken, trying to rebuild. I hope you mean it, she said, her voice steady. Prove it. Make sure no one else goes through what I did. Liam nodded, his eyes wet. I will. I'm transferring schools, starting over. But I'll never forget this. As they left, Sade felt a strange closure. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement that justice could look like this. Messy, human, real. She thought of Hunter, locked away, his future dimmed. Kyle, stripped of his golden boy status, his father's influence powerless against the law. Liam, humbled but haunted. Her evidence had been the blade, her courage the hand that wielded it. That spring, Sade led the Rhythm Hawks to the state championship, their routine a celebration of resilience. Her solo, dedicated to everyone told they don't belong, brought the crowd to its feet. As she landed her final leap, the stadium lights seemed to burn brighter, washing away the shadows of the past. She was no longer the girl dodging water bottles or facing slurs. She was a force, a symbol, a victor. Standing on the porch that night, the MVP trophy cool in her hands, Sade looked at the stars. The fight had been brutal. Threats, vandalism, nights of doubt, but it had forged her into something unbreakable. She'd won, not just for herself, but for every kid who'd face a bully and remember her story. The battle was over, the triumph complete, and Sade Williams was ready for whatever came next. Thank you for diving into Sade's incredible journey. Her courage and triumph over adversity are a testament to the power of standing tall. What did you think of her story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Did Sade's resilience inspire you, or do you have a tale of your own to share? Your voice keeps these stories alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're tuning in from for more gripping tales. Until next time, stay strong and keep fighting for what's right. See you soon.